Okay, it looks like it's about ready now, so just bear with me a second. Yes, okay, over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third show and tell of this phase of product development for BoPS, a new back office planning system software application that processes planning applications. For those who are joining us for the first time, welcome, and for those who have joined us before, welcome back. My name is Tom Buttrick, and I'm the product owner for BoPS here at Southwark Council, where we're working on a number of digital planning projects. This morning, colleagues from the team will be presenting the efforts of our latest work to the MVP that took place since the new year in Sprint 3. Sprint 3 marks the halfway point of this phase of development. So, what is a show and tell? For those who, for those of you who this is the first one, it's our way of keeping you updated on the development, the progress of the project, and it's an opportunity also for you to provide feedback. And we welcome all questions at the end. And so please post your questions using the link in the description in the YouTube below, and there's the link on the screen. So what have we been doing this sprint? Let me hand over to colleagues from Unboxed.
Thank you, Tom. So during the sprint, we've been preparing for private beta testing, which will be running next sprint. We've also been kind of working on the resilience of the system. So that's been rethinking a little bit about the design and then also doing some bug fixes, as well as we have been working on the proposal for continuous funding. So to prepare for private beta testing, we've been inputting historical planning applications from the planning register. And we're going to be using these applications to create a scenario for planners to test things like a happy path and then maybe an invalid document where they'll have to ask an applicant for a new document and then they'll upload it to the system. And then also withdrawing applications from the system as well. And during testing, we are really hoping to kind of like validate that planning officers can complete all aspects of a permitted development application, and then also to test the overall comprehension of the system, and then also the kind of the ease of use of the service. The design work that we've been doing to kind of improve the resilience is we kind of always come back to this phrase, you know, planning isn't a linear journey, and how can we improve that? So we've been working a lot on kind of that happy path and working from start to end, but we know there is loops within the system. So what we've really been doing is working to improve that different states in this application. So just to kind of show you what we have currently. So on your left-hand side, you can see kind of when an application hasn't started yet, you have the task list below. So you have validate documents, you can check your documents, and then you can read the proposal. And once you check that document, that list changes and it becomes assess the proposal. And what we were really wanting to do is instead of having these different states and this different logic behind the back end, we really wanted to simplify that and also simplify the user experience as well. So what we've done is created a status bar at the top where we can show the planning officer where they are within their application, and then also have a list of different tasks that they have to complete, which is always going to be visible. And we've also made the decision that once a document is invalid, that step is not complete. It's only going to be complete once a document is validated. Next slide, please. So what we're really hoping this kind of new design will help us do is kind of simplify the back-end logic. And in doing that, we're also going to improve the overall user experience. But also this kind of like simplified design is going to help us scale up for a full householder. Thank you. So I'm now going to pass over to James.
Hello, I'm James. I'm the lead developer on this project. I'm going to run through some of the work that we've developed that is now being completed this sprint. So first feature that's being created is notifying via email, notifying the applicant once something's been validated. we made the decision that we'll only send an automated email if it's been validated. If it's been invalidated, then there's probably a bit more custom information that we're not going to be able to automatically infer, and we'll leave it to the planning officer to manually contact and explain why it's been invalidated. We've done some work around how we deal with drawing numbers. Yeah, before we were using the proposed tag to know whether we should show a document and its drawing number on a decision notice. But we've now changed that so that it's only if a document has a drawing number, it's shown on the decision notice. This has made it a lot simpler. It's sort of more intuitive and a lot simpler just to be able to run through and quickly do everything that way. We've also simplified and sort of extended how drawing tags are done. So before we had a short list of like side elevation proposed, which obviously have lots of information in there. We've now kind of created a longer list of simpler tags that you can pick and choose and go through. So you can choose side and elevation and plan and proposed. And I'll show you all of this in a second. And the final thing we've done is being able to view decision notices as a PDF. It's a little bit resistant to doing this. PDFs are a little bit clumsy and not the most accessible way of doing things or the most flexible way of doing things, but we've done it because we've learned that people like conveyancing lawyers just really want a PDF that they can email around. So I think that's a bunch of features that I can show you now. So here we go. Here's the live system here. Here's a demo application that I've created. If I go through and check the documents, we can see that we have these simplified tags here. So we've got floor plan proposed. We'll see that if I go through to edit. See here, I can now choose floor plan existing. I could change that to be proposed if I wanted. And I'm going to give this one a document number. So let's call it 4567. Save and return. Let's do one more. Let's say that this one needs to be on the decision notice. I'm going to give that 7896. And let's give this one some tags just for fun. So let's say that's existing. Now that I can say the documents are valid, we showed this last fortnight. And I go through here, and I go to assess the proposal, and I'll say, yes, it has met these. So we're just quickly going through the happy path here. Now, if I look at the decision notice, which we've done a bit of redesign and tweaking, so it's a little bit clearer what's here, but you can see like now we have those two reference numbers there because I gave them reference numbers. And also, finally, down here, download as PDF. That will then generate a PDF which looks identical to the HTML version. And there you go. We've done one other thing. It's probably not worth me going into full screen for this. We're showing all the information in the API. So by default, nearly everything should be public about an application. There may be some not, sometimes that might not be true, but in nearly all the case it is. We're going to make this available through our API. In fact, we have done it. So if I escape that again, quick live demo. So this is our API. We showed it previously. If I give it the ID, we can see here the ID for this is 140. We can see that we're now kind of giving all of the information that we have about this through the API. So the ward it's in, the drawn at, started at, all of this information is now available through the API publicly, which is great. You've seen the API last time, but this time we have someone using the API. So Kevin at Buckinghamshire has sort of put together a test dashboard using the API. I didn't he did this all by himself without me helping. He just used the Swagger documentation. So the information on the map and the sort of the list underneath it, that's automatically being pulled in through the API. I don't know who's doing this.
That's okay, James. I'll take it
great.
from there.
Great.
So thank you, James. Really good to see those features. Thank you. So also this sprint, we've spent a fair bit of time on preparing and submitting a proposal to MHCLG for the next phase of development, and we are seeking to secure funding for the next phase of development, which would kind of commence hopefully in mid-March. The submission document really is about setting out what we want to do moving forwards. As I said earlier, we're in sprint 3 of 6. What happens after that last 6 sprints? Now, what we're looking to do in that that phase of development, that new phase, is to develop the BoPS, for householder applications. To onboard new councils, working with them around the permitted development MVP that we've been demoing, continue some user testing around that. We're also really keen to kind of expand on the development of the actual product, but also think about how we can work with local planning authorities to understand how we can move the product to market in terms of how customers can purchase it, what they need to do around onboarding BoPS into their existing IT ecosystem, the processes, the governance, etc. So we can assist local authorities to do that process. We're also looking at how we can start to look at how we can assist customers with reporting and monitoring of the service improvements as a result of BoPS. We're also, on the next slide, thinking about how we can share that kind of information with local planning authorities online, and how we can build a community of interested parties, building on what we've done so far. We're going to be scaling up the core team, particularly at Southwark Council here, in relation to a new digital transformation officer who'll be working on BoPS amongst other digital projects, and a dedicated technical support officer who will be focusing on how we can onboard BoPS within, as I said, within council IT systems, and assisting our partners with that. And again, further partnership engagement. We'd really like your thoughts on this next phase of development. So there's a call to ask out to you if you want to get involved, to give us your comments on that. So do please get in touch if you'd like to give us your thoughts. So what's next for sprint number 4, I think, which starts next week? I'll hand over to Martin, I think, or is it, sorry, to James? Apologies, James.
Yeah. So so the next sprint, we've did a little bit of pre-planning yesterday, and the theme there is about looking around case assignment, data privacy, and private beta testing. So some of the things we're going to do there, like you saw in the design stage of this presentation, implementing the new application page design. We'll actually take that from design to implementation. We're going to be allowing cases to be assigned and reassigned a little bit more deliberately. We've already come up with some early ideas around that. We'll actually be doing the private beta testing, so sitting down and running real users through the thing and seeing the feedback and what works and what doesn't work, and using that to inform our next steps. The thing I was saying earlier around nearly everything is public. There are exceptions to that. Exceptions was the word I was looking for. We're going to look into that and find easy ways of making sure that it's open by default, but also we don't reveal any information that we shouldn't at any stage, which is a delicate act at some points. And the nerdy side of me is most excited by this one, exploring audit logs, so that we can keep track of what's happened to an application as it's gone through, which can be useful for auditing, but also just general logging of how the system's working. And we'll also be doing
thanks, James. So we'll also be doing, alongside that software development, we're going to be doing further improved partner engagement for user acceptance training and within the project. We're going to be looking at our kind of wider program of work that we kind of just touched on in the CFM submission. and thinking about an overarching milestone plan. I'd like to welcome Chris Edwards, who so for those in Southwark will know, but Chris is our technical support lead, and he'll be joining the core team, so we're welcoming him to the team. We're going to be doing continued alignment work with our colleagues at RIPA. Hello, everyone. And we look forward to doing that. And hopefully, if our submission goes to plan and we get approval from MHCLG, we'll be celebrating the funding for the next phase of development. So we look forward to that. So, I mean, that comes to the end of the presentation. But we'd like to just kind of also just, again, I just touched on this earlier, but a kind of a call out. We'd like to hear from planning staff and planning teams out there. What should we focus on next? What do you think about the product? We'd love to come and demo the product at your councils to show your planning officers. Do get in touch. If you'd like to actually test the product, do get in touch. We are starting some some testing on the latest features that we've been developing through the first 3 sprints. We're going to be doing that with partners within the project, but we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to do some testing as well. You can contact me on the email address or via Twitter. So yeah, do contact us if you'd like to. We can now move on to some questions. For those who haven't submitted any questions, jump on the link there. There's a link in the description on the YouTube video, and we can see what's there. I'm going to hand over to Lauren to see what we've got. Lauren.
Thank you, Tom. So we have a couple of questions following last week's show and tell. So I'm going to start with those. So these are from Alison Britton, who's a planning manager at Southwark Council. So the first question is, how is a case allocated to an officer?
I'll take this one, Martin, to start with. The allocation of a case to a case officer is one of the things we're going to actually be looking at in this forthcoming sprint 4. So we're starting to look at that. So it will be a functionality that is coming very shortly. So yeah, watch this space.
Thank you, Tom. So the next one is, if the case is invalid, what mechanism is there to tell the applicant? How does the applicant submit the additional and corrected information that's required?
So
shall I answer?
Yeah, Martin, do you want to take this one, and I'll
have
one after that?
Yeah. So at the moment, I think, as James alluded to in the demonstration, at the moment that will be a kind of behind the scenes process. The planning officer marks will do that manually. So it will be up to the case officer to contact the applicant and suggest what's next, provide some replacement documents, and then the planning officer can then go in and upload the new documents and then mark the application as valid. So it's a bit of a manual process. We will look at adding new features in future, but we think we can test with it as it is.
Thank you. So the next question is, how would you do consultations? It might be required for an existing certificate of lawfulness application.
This is a really good question, and because obviously most of the time you think, well, certificates of lawfulness don't need consultations, but it's good to obviously recognise that there are kind of edge cases there. So we're looking at how we undertake consultations in the next phase of development as part of the householder functionality, because obviously consultation is for every householder application. So again, it's acknowledged that we need to do that. It's in the backlog of features that we need to develop, and it will be coming forward as the product develops.
Thank you. And so the next question is, where do you write the report? The comments box is not adequate, and all applications will require a written assessment.
This is again a good question, because obviously, in the current sort of system, officers write their recommendation in a report. It goes to the manager for determination. For certificates, we recognise that we were trying to streamline the process, and actually, as it's an assessment of the scheme, the proposal against the regulations. We felt that it could be a much more streamlined process for certificates, particularly for the MVP. Now, as we move to householder applications, obviously the proposed scheme is assessed against the planning policies of the local authority, and that's where the planner's view in terms of the consistency of the proposal against policy or not is really important. So as we move to the next phase of development in terms of looking at householder, we'll be looking at how we prepare a report or similar in the most streamlined process as possible, while still setting out the actual assessment of the application. So again, we'll be looking at that moving forward.
Thank you. So the next question is, the presenters kept referring to MVP and API. I think the former is minimum viable product, but I don't know what the latter is.
Shall I take that one? Yeah, sure. We try and avoid using jargon where possible, but we obviously do use some shortcuts. So you're absolutely right. MVP, Alison, is minimum viable product, and it's definitely jargon. But what it means is, rather than try and create a complete system that's got everything you could possibly use, we aim to release the simplest possible system that will deliver value and that we can learn from. So hence we're always thinking about what's the simplest way we can deliver the required functionality, and then we have that as a platform to build on it. I think it was API you were asking about. API is an application programming interface, and it just refers to the mechanism by which other systems can call data or put data into our system and take data out of our system. So yeah, apologies, we try and avoid the jargon.
Thank you. So the final question from Alison is, there was a bit at the end about this last time, but once a decision is issued, does it upload to the planning register?
So at the current time, it doesn't. We obviously recognise that holding the decision notice on a public register is a statutory requirement. So at this stage, for the minimal viable product, the MVP, there will be a workaround to obviously push the decision notice to the existing planning register. But we recognise that a further work needs to be done on planning registers. They need to be better, they need to be more intuitive, more understandable, and so we'll be looking at planning registers moving forward as part of further development.
Thank you. So we have a couple of questions from this week's show and tell. So the first one is there any GIS map function available as part of this system?
Not currently. I don't know if there's I haven't seen any user needs creating need for some GIS functionality. We can obviously build it if a requirement is needed.
Yeah, I can add a bit to that. I think we might have tackled this in a previous question, actually, in a previous show and tell, but that we've mentioned RIPA, which is the kind of partner project, which is processing applications. And we expect at some point they will be passing polygon data through the API into our system. We did a spike in sorry, there we go, the jargon again. We did a bit of technical investigation in a previous phase around how we would go about showing that information on maps. And it should be fairly straightforward. But there's also a lot more functionality around finding constraints and integrating with council's GIS team. So there's nothing on the immediate backlog, but we are aware that there may well be future needs in that area.
Thank you. And then the final question that we have is from Rich in Camden. He says, the tags look really good. How will you make clear only documents with plan numbers will appear on decision notices and flagged in the system, or do users have to refer to documentation?
I can answer that one quickly. I think we'll all say that we don't want things that require documentation. If I quickly pull this over, we've written it here. I think maybe we've got our first bit of user feedback that's not necessarily working, or maybe I just went through it too quickly. But that will probably come back to user testing of whether people understood that or not. But hopefully it becomes clear without having to rely on documentation.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, there is a story in the backlog. Our backlog is the list of stuff we're planning to work on, and it's in a Trello board, which is public. I'm sure there was a link somewhere. There is a story about adding some more contextual information about the significance of drawing numbers as well. I'm not sure. I thought it might be in the backlog for the next sprint. But yeah, thanks for that, Rich. Good feedback.
If that concludes the questions, I just wanted to say that the next show and tell will be on the 4th of February. So I think we've forgotten to update this slide, but we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye.